Welcome to TechX 2023, IEEE EDICAPA News Premier Technical Conference, where we bring to you the cutting-edge technical information this year on emerging technologies. My name is Nancy Ostin. I'm the director of IEEE EDICAPA New, the Honor Society of IEEE. EDICAPA New has over 200,000 members around the world of top students and bestows the honor of membership on professionals who distinguish themselves based on scholarship, character, and attitude. TechX has been bringing together industry, thought leaders, academia, and our IEEE technical societies and committees to discuss emerging technologies, the impact they have on our careers, research, society, and our communities. Thank you for joining us today. I have the great pleasure of introducing our moderator for this session on AI Beyond the Engineering, my very dear friend and 2019 EDICAPA New president, Dr. Karen Panetta. Dr. Panetta is the Dean of Graduate Education at Tufts University. I mean, she's truly a rock star. I could go on for quite a while about how amazing Karen is, but I'm going to let her take that away and introduce you to the panel that she's assembled today to talk about this really this amazing topic and have a great discussion on AI.
Thank you, Nancy. Welcome, everybody. I'm Karen, and we do have a wonderful panel for you today. I've assembled some of the world's greatest experts, so we're going to get to meet them, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. And what we're going to be talking about today, we all hear about AI and all the different things that are going on, but we're going to talk about it in some different flavors of how it's being used by our experts and some things that they're learning along the way so to help form new pathways for the future. So I'm going to ask Abhishek to please first introduce himself and to our audience, and then each of I'll get our rest of our guests to introduce themselves, and then we'll get going.
Abhishek? Sure. Thank you, Karen. So, hello everyone. My name is Abhishek Putnis. I am a research associate in machine learning in the geospatial AI group at Oak Ridge National Lab. Prior to joining ORNL, I was a grad student at Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. At ORNL, I am fortunate enough to be a part of a passionate team that's working on really exciting projects. Specifically, I work on scaling the geospatial AI workflows that we have at ORNL using high-performance computing platforms like the Summit supercomputer, focused on problems such as building footprint extraction, building damage assessment, and so on. I must say this lastly that I'm really grateful, honored, and equally excited to be a part of this virtual stage with Karen, Anu, and Victor. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Anu?
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Anu Gokhale. I'm professor and department chair of computer information systems at St. Augustine's University. Before that, I'm distinguished professor emerita from Illinois State University, and my research has been on algorithms, data analytics, and its applications across many different domains. I'm excited to be here, and thank you, Karen, for inviting me to be part of this panel.
Thank you. And last but not least, Victor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victor Ludare. I am a machine learning engineer at Apple. I joined last year. I am a jumbo graduate of 2022. I did my PhD under Dr. Karen Panetta. One of the focus of my research was on AI for conservation. We mostly focused on underwater applications on endangered species. And we also, towards the latter end of my PhD, I worked on something related to highway traffic incident detection to improve the user experience on our highways. Thanks, Professor, for allowing me to be part of this. I look forward to enjoying this.
Thank you for being here. Yeah. So let's kick it off by talking about, and I guess I'll start with Abhishek, because Abhishek, can you tell us what geospatial even means in non-engineering terms, and how, when we talk about engineering, we want to talk about not just the technical details, but the impact and the types of humanitarian activities that we can do with this?
Sure. To explain in brief, I think anything that is associated with maps can, be termed as geospatial. So any data point that has a X and Y coordinate, in the sense a latitude and a longitude, is geospatial. And like the geospatial technology is, I think, a part of our lives inherently nowadays. We use maps so often: Apple Maps, Google Maps. There are these logistic delivery companies that are really leveraging geospatial technologies. And then there is this whole other aspect of, geospatial research being used in a multidisciplinary fashion, be it in the medical domain, be it in the humanitarian applications that you rightly pointed out, like when there is an earthquake, or there is a flood event that is happening. So these are the set of technologies that, are used by decision makers to, get a holistic view of what is happening on the earth, and, like send rescue teams at locations that, demand most attention.
Okay, so let's talk about the disasters or things that are going on in the earth. And when we think about AI, we will talk about bias. We will get into that. But I want to talk about some of the good things that it's being used for now. Like we hear about ChatGPT, which, some folks say it's a glorified Wikipedia. Other people are afraid of it. I don't want to see applications and recommendations drafted by ChatGPT. Let's just talk about what are the greatest conservation or humanitarian activities that each of you see right now that AI is being used for. And I guess we'll start with Victor. Victor, how about you? What do you see like some of the greatest, you talked about you have a conservation. How do you think this is actually AI is being used, or is it really impacting conservation, for instance?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because over the last 2-3 years, I think, there's been a lot of work by even big tech companies like Microsoft, if I remember correctly, that has been actively trying to develop AI systems that would help recognize endangered species in the wild. So this is, for example, African elephants. My own work was mostly related to African elephants because of how they have been hunted. And the idea, rather than having to tag them and having to the process of tagging an elephant is actually very hard. So if we're able to leverage camera traps, for example, and use that to tag, using AI, tag each animal in the wild, we're able to also track their movement. We could track with elephants are also very smart. So if you're able to track their behavior in some form of way, you'll be able to have an idea of what's exactly going on in a particular region. So AI actually helps with, that's one case, for example, I can use to explain how AI is being used for conservation.
And you mentioned that you tag the elephant. So, but they're not really physically being touched, which is nice, right? So
Yeah,
I think what you're bringing up is that AI technologies are really a way for us to observe without interfering with the natural behaviors of animals and things, unless you have a drone going by and it's buzzing or something like that. What do you see as like the most current, impact of AI in a good way?
Oh, AI has tremendous benefits, and no wonder it has become such a popular way of applying different things. For example, hiring, all the hiring decisions with the barrage of resumes that companies get, they use algorithms for sorting applications or resumes. And even for promotion, sometimes at the lower level, they use algorithms to observe behaviors through the cameras for training purposes. They determine how attentive people are during the training, and then see how to evaluate people or assess. So there are tremendous adds efficiencies to every walk of our life. There is no doubt about that. Even for credit card applications, it's like a 2-minute process. Why? Made possible by algorithms. So there are just adding efficiency to our life is what technology does, and AI is at the forefront of that technology today.
Good. Abhishek, what about you? What do you see? And you can be in, like you talk about your maps and things like that. How is it really making an impact for good?
Sure. So from my recent experience, I can bring up this example of the Turkey earthquakes, that recently happened, and how AI in the form of building damage assessment was really put by different, companies and NGOs to work, wherein the damaged buildings were quickly identified using satellite imagery, and of course AI was the backbone of it, and relevant action was taken, timely action was taken in that sense. So yeah, disaster is a great humanitarian application where we can actually see the life-saving benefits of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I believe, Victor, you even worked on some disaster
Yeah,
grading and things like that. Yes. So
yeah,
so so everything we've talked about so far is looking at observation and collecting data and efficiencies. Those are the thrusts that I've heard. But when we think about its greatest impact for you collecting the information, what do you do with it? Like, for instance, is it for logistics? Is it for communicating to governments? Is it all of the above? And I guess I'll start with Anu, because you talked about promotions and observing people. I even know that there's new software out there to watch people, like while they're doing Zoom, to see if they're actually engaged. So we could be watching our entire audience and saying, "Oh, this question isn't working," then they've tuned out. Tell us, Anu, about how you think that this information is being used to help.
You bring up a great question about learning analytics. So, how are people learning? And so they analyze the expressions on the face and then the muscle movement to determine whether people are confused, people are more showing more confidence, just showing excitement. They are showing what kind of emotions are they displaying during the learning process, and that tells whether this learning, oh, are they bored, that's another thing. So these are different things that they use for learning analytics, and actually it could be even used in our classrooms, but there is all the privacy and issues that we still need to sort out. And the same goes for AI applications across the board, because there are many invasions of privacy that can happen with AI in the background, and so we need to be careful about that. But it has tremendous benefits. No doubt. I mean, even Hollywood actors and everybody is using AI just to see how we can express ourselves better.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like, I don't know if it's express ourselves better or differently. Abhishek, you mentioned all this disaster recovery or disaster data collection. Can you talked about, you said saving lives. Can you give an example and connect the pieces? So I gather this information, I see all this damage. How am I saving lives?
Sure. So I think to add to Anu's point and to the discussion that you just brought up, like actionable insights is essentially the end goal of artificial intelligence. So who uses this actionable insights is then the relevant question. So in that sense, what happens when a disaster is happening on the ground is the satellite captures the image, and then maybe drones are tasked or satellites are tasked to look at particular areas wherein seismologists pinpoint the epicenter of an earthquake happening. So satellites look at that, the AI algorithms run, detect damage, and then these in turn are passed on to the NGOs and the agencies who are prepared. Or I'm sure, like every government has their own disaster management agencies in place. For example, US has FEMA. So it is these agencies that can you actually benefit from actionable insights, timely being the keyword here, timely actionable insights, and then like deploy teams and so on. So to summarize, actionable insights is, I think, the end goal of AI.
I like that, actionable insights. But it's interesting because different people look at information in different ways. So, somebody could take, a news performance data on somebody's performance, and I don't, you always can say, well, somebody can look at it from different perspectives and say, oh, that's a positive, oh, that's a negative thing. I'll give you an example in academia. Like Victor knows, as I love students, so I'm always giving students lots of time. But the tenure track, right? She spends too much time with students. That's a negative thing. So depending, you have this information, but it still has human perspective that's determining whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So I think that, you know, as we talk through this discussion, I want to talk about how are we going to get the best, like, you know, we're using information in good ways, you know, but now we have to talk about how do we prevent people from using it in bad ways. So, you know, you talked about credit cards are new, that it's easy to get a credit card. Well, how do I prevent somebody from using my name and my information to get a credit card, or you know, or other types of things? And worse, how do we prevent, like Victor just talked about, elephant conservation? Well, if we have this geospatial information and images live, and we know where the elephants are, doesn't that mean that the poachers are also going to know where the elephants are? So how do we, what's the connector to keep us safe but productive and actionable in a good way? So I'll just throw that one out there. Who wants to take that? All right, I'm going to have to pick on people just like I do in class. Anu, what do you think?
Okay, I think decision making is, after all, finally a human decision making. Humans have to make those decisions, and AI definitely, you know, it predicts outcomes and enables decision. But how much of that do we take and how much of that do we use is up to us. So really, it is. We have to use AI wisely. We have to develop it wisely, that technology, and we have to make sure that there are no innate biases in that, and they, you know, in the whole system, because much of it could be a black box where we have a set of inputs. It is a self-learning algorithms that are used, and then we have outputs, and then we say, oh, the system did it, you know, and so we hide behind it. And so that's where I think the human intervention comes in to verify the legitimacy of the recommendations made by the AI algorithms.
Right. And I think a lot of general people trust, because it's a product. Oh, well, it must be, it's giving me this answer. It must be right. You know, things like that. Victor, you collected a lot of ground truths. Can you talk about, like you did a lot of underwater conservation, for example? Can you talk about some of the challenges of even trying to get that kind of information? And how did you, you know, you came up with some novel ways to actually get simulated data, you know, and I think that's with digital twins and everything going on. Everybody's talking about getting, you know, data, whether it's real data or simulated. Can you talk a little bit about what you did, Victor?
Yeah, sure. I think for the underwater stuff, I had a lot of fun doing that because I had to gather some synthetic data by playing video games. I played Subnautica, so I could extract several simulated underwater environments from Subnautica. And GANs, also generative adversarial network, actually helps. So with several advancements right now in generative adversarial, you could actually create synthesized data once you have a distribution of data that tells you what the general content is that's present in the particular distribution of ground truths you have, and you could basically generate random samples from that and generate something synthetic but looking very realistic. With respect to safety, it's a very interesting question because of the trajectory of AI right now. And but the beauty of the human race is, like, we tend to innovate even as we do that. So right now, for adversarials, for example, generating adversarials, you have research that is trying to detect adversarials. With ChatGPT, when ChatGPT came out and everything, you had people research a way to detect ChatGPT responses. So it's going to be an issue with the advances, but definitely there's a lot of work also trying to detect where bad players could actually use this and find that out. Yeah.
It's interesting. You notice, for all our young people out there, that Victor said he played a lot of video games. So there's there's actually value in playing video games. We can say, I'm collecting data. I'm collecting data from my AI. So thank you for that. I think that, you know, we talk about the dangers. And one of the things I was waiting for somebody to talk about is security, you know, just being able to security. Abhishek, do you want to talk anything about how you even secure your geospatial information or your experiences with it?
Sure. So when we largely talk about security of data, we venture into this domain of network security and data protection, cyber security in that sense. So I know of recent works, that where AI has actually helped in intrusion detection. So yeah, so like a simple example of maybe network packet classification. So this problem of classification has largely been studied in the larger domain of AI. So it applied to a particular domain of cybersecurity wherein we filter network packets, whether they being malicious or not, is a great application when it comes to AI for security. There is also this important aspect of access. So to bring up the previous example where you mentioned like poachers being able to access the satellite images, and so that is where we need to have in place regulations, particularly so that the access to such sensitive data is protected, and to ensure that the right people find the right actionable insights that we wish to disseminate. Um, we will of course talk a lot about trust and the negative effects of artificial intelligence, but yeah, I'll pause here. So
Yeah, we want to stay positive and upbeat, but I think it's important that we do speak about these other aspects of it, because a lot of our HKN promising students are in this field developing this future technology, and we want them to be aware of these are the things you need to be looking out at. But the one thing that I've heard all of you talk about is, whether regardless you're machine learning or whether you're an AI or whether you're geospatial and imaging, you've got multiple fields. I mean, none of you are just, I'm electrical, I'm just a computer engineer anymore. Let's talk about like what interdisciplinary things have you worked on, or did you discover about yourself during this process that you were like, never in a million years did I think I would be doing this or learning this. So Anu, why don't you start off on that one?
Okay. It is important that social scientists come into the picture, especially when we are doing AI for use in society. All our applications are for daily use. And so it is important that we understand the psychology, the sociological aspects of, for example, any biases, racial, gender, etc., biases that may exist in the results that are being produced by the AI, as well as what are the inputs. Typically, when we have the inputs, we give weights to different factors. Are they accurately being represented and for the society that we are living in? And so it was important how engineering beyond it, today's topic is AI beyond the engineering, and beyond the engineering is really bringing all these different disciplines into the fold of AI and saying that, hey, this is our future. How can we have everybody participate in this domain and then develop it for our use?
It's interesting because most engineering students start and they're like, why do I take psychology? Why do I take philosophy? I'd rather take another programming language. And I have to be honest, I was one of them. I was like, I want to learn another programming language. But now why do I care if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it? I think this is a great example of you never anticipated that this was going to be so important. Victor, what have you done that you're like, I never thought in a million years I would be learning about this while I was doing my engineering?
Yeah, I think it still boils down to the conservation work. My first attempt was at the AI for conservation was trying to understand sounds of elephants, the sounds elephants make, and how to distinguish their emotions based on sounds. It's interesting how we could overlap something like that with AI and try to navigate that. So I had to research some things about animal behavior, elephants specifically, and which is the ground So apart from just taking data in itself, you have to actually understand the species or the is it, how do I call it, the
And you didn't do
use
that
case
alone. You didn't do that
in a
alone
way.
either. You actually had
No,
access to professional veterinarians and conservationists and
yeah,
things like that. So, that's the other thing is a lot of people think that, oh, well, I'm just going to go read about it. I'll go, on YouTube and look up a
yeah,
couple of videos. And it's like, no, this is a great opportunity. So he got to work with vets. I mean, that's a great one. I think that's a great example that, if you love conservation, it's not just about the technology, but you're learning about the medical. Abhishek, what about you? What was the big shock for you that, oh my gosh, I can use this to do, interact with something I never thought I'd be doing in a million years?
Uh, yeah, so like to bring back, you mentioned that each of us have always, like each of the panelists here have always been multidisciplinary at this point of time. But when we started out, I'm sure we each had a particular specialization that we started out in. So similarly, like I did my bachelor's in computer engineering, and when I started my master's, I had this notion that okay, I'll be working with satellite images, but there was this particular project that I can, fondly remember, wherein we worked in the domain of agriculture, and the problem statement was crop yield prediction, and how can satellite images, tell a story of which particular area on the farm needs to be irrigated with X amount of water. So in this entire project, I got an opportunity. I was fortunate to interact with farmers. I had never imagined prior, just maybe 2 years back, that when I was writing C++ code, that I will, eventually venture into agriculture, speak to farmers about their crop yield. So it was, it's how opportunities come, and you have got to be multidisciplinary in today's world.
Right. And I think that you've all demonstrated through your projects that you have to be willing to do that and engage with different communities. And a lot of times we hear that engineers don't like to talk, they don't like to write, but I think that you've all demonstrated the communication, and the HKN, we all understand that. So that's absolutely fabulous. Thank you. The next topic I really want to talk about is more about how AI is you talk about as an algorithm, talking about the platforms. We've talked about drones, we're talking about underwater. Let's talk a little bit more general, like, in our cars, in our vacuum cleaners, in our washing machines, or even, more robotics. So back a few, not even 2 years ago, IEEE did a survey of parents asking about, would you trust AI, an AI, robotic controlled AI, to operate on your child? And, and that was 2 years ago. And it was funny because different countries, for instance, in Asia, they're like, yeah, sure, why not? Here in the US, where a lot of this technology is being developed, was like, no way. So let's talk about the public acceptance of AI. What do we need to do to make sure that when the public gets it, how do we as engineers can say, yes, this is safe, but what's missing? What's missing from the whole AI economy right now to communicate it to people who are users, I would say. So let's start with Anu.
I would say the trust factor is missing, trust in the technology itself, and that the data is secure. And with all the security breaches that we keep hearing practically every day, uh, people are like, can I trust the system with my data? And so that's a huge deal. Even having security cameras at home, can somebody else access those same cameras and misuse the security system? So every little thing, I think we have to be careful about, because it's easy to get access once it's technology, and it's electronic. It's just a matter of time before hackers or whoever can get access to it. We all know that. So I would say it's the matter of trust, and even trust in the government. Can the
Government, all right,
data secure? And what about our privacy? How there is information out there that practically every text message that is sent can be read. Right, and so and Department of Homeland Security has a lot of latitude on what they can do. Practically nothing that they cannot do. So so that is a matter of concern, and there need to be some regulations. And for that, even the HKN community need to be social activists, informing our lawmakers who are our members of the Congress, even the members like the state senators, state Congress, House of Representatives, as well as the federal, at the national level, about these technologies, because that's our role, to bring engineering, science, bring awareness about these technologies and how can they be used by the lawmakers to make better laws.
Okay, that is really profound, because we've talked about conservation, we talked about these things, but we haven't talked about engineers becoming politicians and advocates in government. And I think that that's really going to be important, because if we're going to have these legislation written by people who don't understand technology, that's a problem. So I think, we don't want to just be the consultants. We really want to be on the ground floor. So I think that was really impactful. And I also didn't know that so many people can look at my text messages. So I'm going to start being more careful about what I send in a text. Abhishek, what do you think's going on?
I think like trust as a concept is what, as Anu mentioned, that people do not trust an AI system in its current state. So maybe from a technological perspective, there is this angle of the AI system not being able to explain itself at how it got to a particular conclusion. And like purely from a technical perspective, deep learning has made a lot of progress, but then as most of the technical folks are aware, that largely it is a black box. And then there is a significant research that is now being encouraged to sort of make machine learning models explainable, formal verification of machine learning models. So I think it's high time that the research community, is aware of these risks, that if machine is able to state a fact, the aspect of the fact being traceable is equally important as the ability to quickly arrive to a conclusion. And there is research, because I can say with great pride that in my research group itself there are folks who are focused on geo assurance. So they look at privacy, they look at uncertainty quantification, and so on. So largely the research community is becoming aware of these requirements, when it comes to AI, wherein we need to invest more in this aspect of AI to make it trustworthy.
Okay, so I'm hearing trust is a big thing. I'm hearing that we need more regulation, informed regulation. I get nervous because one of the things that we always see, even with the internet, was that the laws aren't, they're miles behind the technology. So maybe there's a future engineering field of law that will it will start having new disciplines where we have engineers turning into creating new laws and understanding how to be policymakers. I think that that's a great thing, to be able to look at different futures. So Victor, did you want to add anything to the conversation on this topic?
Yeah, so I think trust is still the big thing, and even in the research community, there's a huge. I think Abhishek mentioned that you want your model to explainability of models, of AI models, reproducibility. That's why you have a lot of advocates for open source technologies. You want to be able to verify it. You want to be able to. It helps trust, and I also think as AI engineers, we also have to be patient with people that would use it, because you have to ensure over time, as you test and fine tune and check, prove that your model does what it does, people over time, as they use, verify, they will trust it gradually, and in a way, it starts getting embedded to people's lives. And like you mentioned, having a robot I wouldn't want the robot to probably operate on my loved one until I can trust that it has done it over and over again and there are no issues. So,
Right. Yeah, I use a lot of these chatbots, and I get upset because they're made to handle the current cases, like the traditional pathway through the questions that are asked, frequently asked questions. If I'm on there, it's not because I'm got a standard question. It's something exceptional outside of that questions. And that's when it's like, just give me a human being, and there's no, I am a human being. It's like, no, you're not, you're a robot, you're an algorithm, and I get it to fail. And that's the other thing too. And that doesn't build trust. Because if you are using an algorithm and saying, well, my name is, the chatbot and I'm a human, and you give it a human name, the fact that you're trying to dupe me by making me think that it's human, that doesn't build trust. And I think that that's something that's bothered me personally about these AI applications is, it's okay to say we use chatbots, it's okay to say that. And when it fails, I can say, yeah, it failed. You need to fix it. I never thought about patience, Victor, because, it's like Andy Capanu, what are we? Attitude, character, and scholarship. Now we have to add patience. So I think it's true. We do need patience, to get people that everybody thinks differently, everybody learns differently, and people are going to come around differently. And I think that some of the most impactful applications or products that come out in the future for AI are the ones that do exactly this and build trust with people and can look at these corner cases. I think I've heard of in testing, someone said it's death by millions of corner cases, right? So we talk about this, and maybe this is where your simulations come in. So I'm really liking the fact that it's not just about the algorithm. It's not just about us as engineers writing code. It's not just about us, interacting with the people we're writing it for, but looking at how can I beat this up and look at it and hammer it from different avenues so that I'm sure that it's trustworthy and that I have to start thinking from different perspectives and engaging more people on it. Can we talk about AI as a diversity inclusive field? Engineering has always been traditionally male dominated, no room, you got to sit in the basement at that computer 24/7, sacrifice everything else, have no life. But that's not what we are now. And AI is opening that. Can we talk about where you've seen AI to be a bridge or actually attracting diverse populations or people that before might have never said, no, this is not for me? Does anybody want to take that question? The news nodding her head, so that means yes.
Oh, I was just thinking.
See, we need that emotion recognition, because that to me says, yes, I'll answer this question.
So true. Absolutely. I think just the fact that AI is now not just sitting at the computer and doing things, which is typically what has turned off a lot of females or some of the other minority populations away from, and not seeing people of your kind. I mean, with avatars or anything that we can put on ourselves, we can transform ourselves, and others can transform themselves to uh, I believe it is beyond just sitting at the computer and doing something. It's analyzing the results, analyzing what's going in there. Is it making sense? All that is in the cognitive domain of not just science and engineering, but applying of multiple skills. And I think that's where value of different working as a team, not just one person. And anything where we can work as a team and bring different perspectives to analyze the problem and analyze the solutions that are being recommended by the system, I think would add value.
Abhishek, I see Abhishek nodding. I'm hoping that means he can. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. I completely agree to Anu's point, and it actually pointed me to our discussion point earlier, wherein Karen, you mentioned about multidisciplinary being a avenue for AI. I would like to echo Anu's thoughts when she mentioned about sociologists, being inducted into this ecosystem too. I mean, the products that AI engineers are going to develop are eventually being are targeted to be used by the society at large. So all stakeholders, I think, have equal participation when it comes to contributing to this AI ecosystem. So yeah, so I strongly feel that sociology or even humanities as a science, can or rather needs to work with engineering in the sense of if we are to progress, in a coherent fashion as a society.
Okay. Victor, you think that more people are going to want to do AI than say, I just want to be a pure electrical engineer anymore? I mean, because electrical engineering is still the least representative field. So what do you think?
Absolutely. I've seen a lot of changes, and I think it helps really appreciate engineers or researchers who actually open source their research, because you're not just leaving it in the hands of the big companies or the researchers who could fund that, but in the hands of a guy who probably didn't go to school at all, that just knows how to use his computer. He doesn't need to know the underlying algorithm, just being able to use that, generate new fields and new areas, new occupations. For example, in Africa, in Nigeria, I've seen with ChatGPT coming out, I've seen how industrials, how people could use that to try to generate new products, to try to help the economy of the country, like by just being able to have more youth use the leverage these technologies for new things could help with respect to that. I also know about a company that is trying to better education just using AI and better education back home in Africa and all of those things. So it definitely tries to, in its own way, include more people, even those that may not be able to get NVIDIA GPU that might cost 20,000 to run a model or something.
Actually engaging and accessibility. Those are the two things that I'm hearing here, is being able to engage broader audiences where they're at. So whether they're, in a rural village in Africa or they're in, a city or whatever, they all get the same access to this technology, which I think is fabulous. So that's amazing. I look as the future of education. New talked about in the beginning how you can help people learn better, so that if something doesn't work for me, if I don't learn well this way, it can customize to me, which would be really, I think is going to be really impactful for helping different abled people. That, before it was like, this is the standard, this is what we apply to everyone, this is how everybody has to learn. And if that's not your mode of learning, you fail. And I think that has excluded audiences for many, many years. So this is truly impactful. Well, we have a few minutes left. I would like to open it up to what, Bernie, questions would you like to bring up? Is there anything you'd like to talk about? When we invited you to this panel, we said AI beyond the engineering. What's the first things that you were thinking about? Anybody want to chime in? Did you think you'd just be talking about the stuff that you do at work? Do you include things outside? Like, how do you personally see how you interact on a daily with AI beyond your workplace? I mean, I mentioned the chatbots. Has anybody got a self-driving vehicle? Uh-oh. None of us trust it yet. Is that the problem? You got a group of engineers that doesn't trust it. I'm looking at, I've done a lot of travel for IEEE, and I'm looking at the coordination of air travel. And that in this day and age, it's like, well, our flight got in and it's an hour early, but by the way, your gate's not ready. Or by the way, we're delayed and your connecting flight's gone. And I'm just wondering, it's like, oh, why? Do you ever get there and say, why in this day and age can't they fix this? And that's one of my little things is, what do you see every day that you think that why and how they should be using AI to fix this? Is there anybody who has any ideas? And actually, I don't want you to give away your IP, because if you're going to give away a multi-billion-dollar idea, we don't want that. But is there things that you see, scheduling, or even in healthcare, at healthcare. I go in and they still can't give me my accurate information about my last few exams. They give me something from 20 years ago. Like, how do they not share this information? So I know there's a security issue. I know there's a trust issue. But is there anything encompassing that you see that besides trust that we wish that we could use AI for that you don't see it used for now?
I think what we could do is make the data sets more customized data sets for different, like you brought up healthcare, Karen, and it could be like basically based on your a person's heredity, what are the ethnic origins, and then have data sets for that, and therefore make recommendations based on that. So it could be, we could have more with so much quintillion bytes of data generated every day. We could definitely try to not just put all the data in together, but even segment the data and segment it on different ways, just like we do in statistics, So I would see the future of just having the right data go into the systems and therefore make customized recommendations.
That's good. That's a good point, because, like with the geospatial imaging, right? If I live somewhere, where is access to certain foods or access to certain conditions, I'm probably going to, even if I have the same ethnic background as you and I come from a different place, I'm probably going to have, that's probably going to affect my health and where I come from. So that's a great example. Are there any other examples anybody'd like to share?
I think I would like to connect it to, I think this may not be plainly AI, but I think interconnecting, how do you have people in remote areas communicate with each other? For example, for the conservation work, I would wish, for example, that conservation experts in Kenya could talk to conservation experts in India, and exactly what the problem is from the people that actually that would need your technology, rather than just develop some things in abstraction and you just hope it works and you go to the field and find out it fails. So
right.
probably
getting
that
more,
link
so
of
getting
communication.
more relevant information from the stakeholders who are going to use your technology, which I think is also, we haven't touched upon this, but most students today are really entrepreneurs. And, customer development and asking these like stakeholder questions that Victor's talking about has become pivotal to that process. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could assist new entrepreneurs in gathering the right data to know that your solution is solving the right problem and that people would use it? That's an excellent thing, Victor. I look forward to your new startup that you're I'm joking. I'm just saying Victor's being so innovative here that I think that he's on to a whole new field of engineering. I think you've proposed like 2 new fields of engineering for us today, Victor. So thank you for that. So we have like 2 minutes left. I just want to, hear if there's any closing thoughts from each of you. So we'll start with Abhishek. Do you have any closing thoughts for our session, or maybe advice for our HKN population watching this show today?
Sure. So I personally feel that it's a great time to be a researcher in this particular paradigm of artificial intelligence. Lots of new things happening, lots of things to be aware of. As we rightly discussed in this panel discussion, like trust, safety concerns, privacy, and so on. So there is really a great avenue for budding researchers to explore this particular area. Focusing on uncertainty quantification, trust, privacy. So that like bringing back to your point of being equally represented. So building trust, I think is where the budding AI researchers should really focus on, because I think that's the place that is going to be a hot area in the future.
Okay, Anu?
Well, I would just say that AI has applications in all walks of our life. So going forward, no matter what career you are in, what situation you are in, fearlessly question the the recommendations being made by the system. So whenever you get a system recommendations or predictions made by the system, don't be hesitant to question those, the legitimacy of those, because they could be erroneous.
Excellent, excellent. And Victor, closing thoughts
Okay, I
or
think
advice?
AI is for everyone. That's the advice I would give. Right now, it's become simplified. So it's not for a selected few, it's not for the smartest, it's for everyone. So if there's a little data you have in your application, there's an algorithm for it. So just make sure you harness the benefits that comes with it.
Well, I want to thank our esteemed panel for being here. I hope you've enjoyed some of these thought-provoking things. And, and if there's any other topics that you'd like to discuss or have us look at in the future, please let us know so that we can help craft new sessions for you to help you address and get your pathways forward, and give you these opportunities to discuss it with world famous people like the panel that I have with me today. So on behalf of HKN, I want to thank you all for joining us, and I hope you had a great session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.